Long ago, in the early days of the land, there was a town called Faithfield, a quiet countryside place with rolling green hills, white fences, and farms that stretched as far as the eye could see. The people there loved peace, hard work, and prayer. They trusted in God, who they believed guided their harvests and protected their homes. But across the wide valley, in the dark lands called Iron Hills, lived a group of proud warriors who wanted to rule over Faithfield. Their leader was a giant of man, tall as a barn door, strong as an oak tree, and loud as thunder. His name was Goliath. Every morning and every evening, Goliath would step out from his camp, stand on a high ridge overlooking the valley, and shout across to the people of Faithfield. "Send me your best man," he roared, his voice echoing off the mountains. "Let him fight me. If he wins, we will serve you. But if I win, you will serve us." His armor was made of shining bronze that gleamed like fire in the sun. His spear was longer than a flagpole, and the head of it weighed as much as a blacksmith's hammer. Every time he shouted, the ground seemed to tremble. The people of Faithfield grew afraid. Their soldiers hid behind wagons, and even King Saul, their tall and noble leader, felt his heart shake. "Who among us," he said quietly, "could fight such a man?" Days passed. Goliath mocked him again and again. "Where is your courage? Where is your faith? Are you all cowards?" The townsfolk hung their heads in shame. They prayed for an answer, but no one came forward. Far from the battlefield, on a peaceful hillside outside town, a young shepherd boy named David watched over his father's sheep. He was the youngest of 8 sons, small, slender, and kind-hearted. He played soft tunes on his wooden flute, sang to his sheep, and thanked God for every sunrise and sunset. David's father, Jesse, often said, "You may be small, my boy, but you have a big heart." One day, Jesse called David and said, "Your brothers are serving King Saul in the battle against the Iron Hills. Take this basket of bread and cheese to them, and see how they are doing." David nodded eagerly. "Yes, father." He slung the basket over his shoulder and began the long walk toward the valley. As he drew closer, he heard a deep, thunderous voice echoing over the land. "Who dares to face me today?" It was Goliath, shouting again. The soldiers of Faithfield were lined up behind rocks and fences, trembling. David looked around, confused. "Why is everyone afraid?" One of the soldiers whispered, "That's Goliath. He's been calling us out for 40 days. No one's brave enough to fight him." David frowned. "But doesn't anyone believe that God can help us?" The men just shook their heads. "You don't understand, boy. He's too big. One swing of his spear could knock down a house." Just then, David's oldest brother, Eliab, spotted him. "David," he snapped, "what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be watching sheep?" David set down his basket. "Father sent me to bring you food and see how you were doing. But tell me, why is everyone so afraid of that man?" Eliab's face turned red. "You're just a boy. Stop talking nonsense. Go home before you get yourself hurt." But David didn't move. His eyes stayed on the giant across the valley. "Someone needs to stand up to him," he said softly. Word spread quickly that a boy was talking about fighting Goliath. Soon, King Saul himself called for David. The boy was brought before him, dusty from the road, holding nothing but a shepherd's staff and a sling hanging from his belt. King Saul looked at him and said kindly, "You're brave, son, but you're too young. Goliath has been a warrior since before you were born." David bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I keep my father's sheep. When a lion or a bear comes to take one, I go after it. I strike it down and save the sheep. The same God who helped me then will help me now." The king studied him for a moment. There was something in David's eyes, not pride, not foolishness, but faith. "You may go," said Saul at last, "and may the Lord be with you." He offered David his own armor, a heavy bronze chestplate and a gleaming helmet. But when David tried them on, he could barely move. "I can't fight in these," he said with a laugh. "They're too big." So he took them off, picked up his shepherd's staff, and went down to the brook. There, he chose 5 smooth stones and placed them carefully in his sling pouch. The soldiers watched as he stepped into the valley. Some whispered, "That boy is brave." Others said, "He's walking to his death." But David didn't listen. He could feel the wind on his face and the quiet strength in his heart. Goliath saw him coming and began to laugh, a deep, cruel laugh that rolled like thunder. "You send me a child?" he shouted. "Am I a dog and you come at me with sticks?" David called back, "You come to me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty." The crowd fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Goliath growled, "Then come, boy. Let's see what your God can do." David reached into his pouch and felt the smooth stones, cold, solid, and ready. He looked up at the giant towering above him, then whispered to himself, "It's not about size. It's about faith." And with that, he began to run toward Goliath. The soldiers gasped. The giant roared. Dust rose from the ground as David lifted his sling, placed a stone inside, and began to spin above his head, faster, faster, until the air hummed. Then, with a quick motion, he let it fly. The stone cut through the air like lightning. The air was still as David's sling spun through the valley. The sound of the leather strap cutting the wind echoed like a whisper of faith. Then, thwack! The stone struck Goliath square in the forehead. The giant's laughter stopped in an instant. His great body wavered, eyes wide with shock, and then, with a mighty crash, he fell forward onto the ground, face first into the dust. For a moment, no one moved. Not the soldiers, not the king, not even the birds above the valley. All that could be heard was the wind sweeping gently across the hills. Then someone shouted, "He's down! Goliath has fallen!" A cry of joy rose from the people of Faithfield. They had seen the impossible happen. A boy with a sling had defeated a warrior of iron. The men threw their hats into the air. The women cheered from the ridges. Even King Saul stood to his feet, his eyes wide in awe. David took a deep breath and looked at the fallen giant. He whispered softly, "The battle is the Lord's." Then he turned to face the stunned soldiers of the Iron Hills, who could only stare in disbelief. Their proud champion was gone. Their shouts of mockery had turned into fear. One by one, they dropped their weapons and fled into the mountains. Faithfield erupted with joy. The people ran down the hillside, surrounding David and lifting him high onto their shoulders. "You did it, David," they cried. "You defeated the giant." But David shook his head. "No," he said humbly. "It wasn't me. God did it. I only trusted him." That evening, the people gathered in the town square. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and gold as the sun began to set. The air smelled of fresh bread and victory. David stood before King Saul, still holding his sling in his hand. The king looked at him with wonder. "Tell me, young shepherd," he said, "how were you not afraid? Every man in this town trembled before Goliath, yet you stood firm." David smiled gently. "When I was in the fields, your majesty, I faced lions and bears who came to steal my sheep. I was small then too, but God gave me strength. I learned that it's not about how big the enemy is. It's about how big your faith is." The king nodded slowly. "Your heart is stronger than any soldier's armor. From this day on, Faithfield will remember your courage." The crowd cheered again, but David's eyes looked toward the horizon, where the iron hills faded in the distance. "I only did what was right," he said quietly. "Sometimes the world needs to be reminded that faith is stronger than fear." That night, the town celebrated. There were bonfires, singing and dancing in the streets. Children ran around pretending to swing slings, shouting, "I'm David, the giant slayer." David's father, Jesse, stood proudly among the crowd, his eyes shining with tears. "That's my boy," he said softly. David's older brother, Eliab, approached him, shame written on his face. "David," he said, lowering his head, "I misjudged you. I thought you were just a boy with big dreams. But you were the only one who saw clearly." David smiled and placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "You weren't wrong to be afraid," he said. "Even I felt fear. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's trusting God enough to move forward anyway." Eliab nodded. "You taught me something today, little brother." The days that followed were peaceful. Faithfield went back to its rhythm of farming, trading, and worship. But the story of David and the giant spread far and wide. Travelers passing through would stop in the marketplace and ask, "Is it true that a shepherd boy defeated a warrior twice his size?" And the townsfolk would smile proudly. Yes, they'd say, he did it with nothing but a sling, 5 stones, and his faith. David returned to the field for a time, caring for his sheep as before. But he was no longer just a shepherd boy. He was a symbol of hope. Children came to the hills to hear him play his flute and asked him about the day he faced a giant. He would always tell them the same thing. When you stand for truth, when you trust God's word, you may look small, but you are never weak. One afternoon, a young farmhand named Jonas came to see David. He was trembling as he spoke. David, I've heard your story. I'm facing my own giant. My family is losing our land. I don't know what to do. David looked at him kindly. Jonas, every person has a Goliath in their life. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's doubt. Sometimes it's hardship. But remember, the battle isn't yours to win alone. You must do your part, but trust God with the rest. Jonas swallowed hard. You really believe he'll help me? David smiled. He helped me. He'll help you too. The same God who brought down the giant will never leave you. Jonas nodded slowly, courage returning to his heart. He thanked David and walked away stronger than before. David watched him go, whispering, "May the Lord be your strength, as he was mine." Years later, people still told the story of that day in Faithfield, the day when faith defeated fear, when a boy became a hero, and when the world learned that with God, no giant is too big to fall. They told their children, don't measure your strength by your size, but by your heart. Don't fear your problems. Face them with faith. And somewhere in the stillness of the countryside, the sound of a shepherd's flute could sometimes be heard drifting through the wind, a reminder of the boy who dared to believe. Moral lesson. The story of David and Goliath teaches us that no matter how small or weak we may seem, with faith, courage, and belief in God, we can overcome the greatest challenges. True strength doesn't come from swords, armor, or size. It comes from a heart that trusts in something greater. When life brings you giants, fear, failure, or doubt, remember what David said. You come to me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty. 1 Samuel 17, verse 45, NIV. Just like David faced his giant with faith and courage, you too can face yours, whatever it may be. Maybe your Goliath is fear, worry, or a hard situation that seems impossible to beat. Don't run from it. Stand firm. Believe. Take your sling of faith and face it head on. If this story inspired you to be brave like David, like this video, subscribe for more powerful and dramatic stories of faith, and share your thoughts below. What's the giant in your life that you're ready to face?